Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today it is Season 1, Episode 28, Portrait of Jocelyn, starring Philip Abbott as Mark Halliday and Nancy Gates as Debbie Halliday. And this, in my opinion, is just an average episode. The central story and mystery is somewhat interesting, but the episode is a little bit more melodramatic than I would like. And the twist ending is just kind of okay. It's just kind of there. Overall, I would just say this is a middle of the road episode. So we start with our two main characters, Mark and Debbie, and we learn it is their first wedding anniversary, and they seem to be doing okay. They seem to be happy, which we'll find out might not necessarily be true. And it seems like they are going to pick up a painting that Mark picked out in celebration of this event. And the problem is that when they get the painting, it is not the painting that Mark expected. It turns out this is a painting of his first wife, Jocelyn, who disappeared 5 years ago, but we're not really sure why. So Mark takes this picture to Jocelyn's brother. His name is Jeff, I believe, and Jeff says, I'm pretty sure it's of her. And he also says he's had some contact with Jocelyn, but he basically didn't tell Mark about this because Mark had found another woman in Debbie, and he didn't want to bother Mark with this. But it does seem that Mark is disturbed about all this and that he can't really let Jocelyn go. So we go to a Mark and Debbie scene, and Debbie's upset. She says Jocelyn's always there. She's always with them. So she's obviously not very happy about this either, and they get mad at each other and make up very quickly. Thought that was kind of an odd scene, but I guess it's okay. And basically Mark tells Debbie the story that Jeff gave him about that they might have a lead on Jocelyn. And then surprisingly, Debbie talks about Jocelyn too. Did she know her before? I'm not really sure. This wasn't made very clear, but she definitely seems to have seen Jocelyn before. I thought that was probably the strangest part of the episode. So then we learn that Jeff calls Mark, and it turns out there is a lead. It turns out he found out who the painter was of the picture. So at this point, Mark and Debbie decide they are going to go to the place. I believe it's called Shell Harbor, because they need some closure in this situation. So it turns out that Mark has to wind up staying in the cottage where he lived 5 years ago. And if this seems like it's a little bit of a coincidence, it will all make sense by the end of the episode. I thought this part was handled okay. It does a good job of keeping the viewer guessing as to whether this is all just coincidence or if something more is going on. So when Mark and Debbie get to this cottage, they look around and see there's a lot of things there that represent Jocelyn, and Debbie's really concerned. And Mark also gets concerned when he sees a sculpture. Basically, it's like a portrait of Jocelyn's face. So we go to the next scene, and a man named Arthur Clymer comes in. It turns out he's the artist and the man that painted the picture that started all of this. And basically Mark questions Arthur, and he says, yes, I did this. I used my wife Jocelyn as a model. So now this could go to some interesting places. Unfortunately, I don't think what we get is quite as interesting, but it's okay, I guess. So Mark goes to visit Arthur. It's either later that day or the next day. I'm not really sure. And Mark wants to see Jocelyn, and Arthur says she's not around, and Arthur says he has no idea where she is. He acts like she's left town, maybe with another man or something. And then finally Arthur gives in when Mark suspects there's more and says she's passed away. So Mark wants an explanation, and I have to say this scene goes on for quite a long time. They really build up the ending, but it's okay. It's somewhat effective. And after this long time goes by with both men, Arthur hints that he killed Jocelyn. He said he walked in on her with another man. She was always cheating on him, and that before he knew it, she was just on the floor. So at this point, Mark says that's not what happens, and he actually admits that he killed Jocelyn, and the two men basically fight. And all of a sudden, Jocelyn's brother Jeff comes, the guy we saw at the beginning of the episode, and it turns out he suspected this all along, as they found Jocelyn's body not too long ago, but he had no proof. And it also turns out that Arthur is really a detective, so he and Jeff set all this up basically to see if Mark would admit it, and this works. And is this plausible or not? I'm not really sure. It seems a little implausible to me, but if you just go with it, I guess it's an okay twist ending. So it turns out they do catch Mark here, and we never hear from Debbie again, which was a little strange. We get no reaction from her at all. They kind of built her up like she'd be an important character, and then they just kind of leave her storyline with nothing really to do the second half of the episode, which I thought was a bit strange. But all in all, Portrait of Jocelyn is an average and watchable episode, and I give it 2.5 out of 5. Probably an episode to watch once. It's enjoyable enough, I guess. So 2.5 out of 5 for Portrait of Jocelyn, and as always, thank you very much for watching.